Thank you for joining us in today's sermon notes, which is taken from 1 Samuel, the 3rd chapter, the 1st to the 10th verse, which reads, Now the boy Samuel ministered to the Lord before Eli, and the word of the Lord was rare in those days. There was no widespread revelation. And it came to pass at that time, while Eli was laying down in his place, and when his eyes had begun to grow so dim that he could not see, and before the lamp of God went out in the tabernacle of the Lord, where the ark of the Lord was, and while Samuel was laying down, that the Lord called Samuel. And he answered, Here am I. So he ran to Eli and said, Here am I, for you called me. And he said, I did not call. Lay down again. And he went and lay down. Then the Lord called yet again, Samuel. So Samuel rose and went to Eli and said, Here am I, for you called me. He answered, I did not call, my son. Lay down again. Now Samuel did not know the Lord, nor was the word of the Lord yet revealed to him. And the Lord called Samuel again the third time. So he arose and went to Eli and said, Here am I, for you did call me. And Eli perceived that the Lord had called the boy. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, Go lay down, and it shall be, if he calls you, that you must say, Speak, Lord, for your servant hears. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. Now the Lord came and stood and called as at the other times, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel answered, Speak, for your servant hears. The story of the call of Samuel to ministry is perhaps the most instructive example of teacher-student interaction ever recorded. Samuel, his mother Hannah, and just about everyone else in Israel thought Eli was the greatest prophet of their time. Undoubtedly he was. But the Lord wasn't equally impressed and sought to replace him. Note to self, God doesn't move by popular opinion. See, unknown to Samuel, he was God's choice to replace Eli. A thought I'm sure this young man would find hard to wrap his head around. But even in making this discovery, Samuel still needed sound counsel from Eli, the man he trusted most. This account is certainly a cautionary tale to those of us in leadership. What we say and do can impact the lives of those that come to us for advice. Culturally, in this thing we call the black church, the Rev is considered a knowledgeable sage and reliable confidant. Some people will hang on your every word and believe what comes out of your mouth. And that's an impossible position to be in, yet we do it every day. So we got to be careful. But there's an equally important lesson here for those seeking the will of the Lord in their lives. In both cases, pastor or parishioner, we must submit all our inquiries to the Lord. Most of the time, people are asking the right question, but directing it to the wrong person. While Eli had some failures in his leadership during his time as prophet and priest, well, with Samuel, he did something few leaders ever do. He deferred. Instead of pretending to know or handing out standardized solutions, he simply sent the young man back to the place where he first heard from God to get direction directly from God. What a wonderful interaction. Can you imagine the outcome if Eli tried to figure out what God was saying to Samuel? I'm sure the young man would have done whatever the prophet asked, but Eli was connected enough to know he wasn't connected. Sometimes the best thing to realize is what you don't know. Speaking what God has said to you is a frightening thought. People are going to think you're crazy and discount your encounter as delusional. But I encourage everyone, if God gave it to you, give it to us, just like he said it. As a matter of fact, let me tell you my story. I had a vivid daydream the other day. I was in a huge clothing store and I began to envision what it would look like with all the clothes and racks gone, and everything replaced with spectacularly gifted people of God, simultaneously working in every conceivable area of ministry. Some preaching over here, others teaching over there, some loading trucks with food and supplies for the needy, a bunch working on music and 24-hour streaming. I envision a real Christian enterprise open 7 days a week with franchises all over the world. Then I thought about some of you, to be honest, and the many questions a proposition like this would raise. And all I can say is, you're asking the right question, but to the wrong person. That's God's business. God bless you. May heaven smile upon you.